Hello, Assalamu alaikum, and welcome to Tasha's Tales. I can't quite believe I am saying this, but today we have Zainab from Race Across the World with me.
Hiya.
Zainab, do you want to introduce yourself? Say hi.
Hi, so I'm Zainab. I am a psychiatrist. I am a cat mom of 3, and I've been living in Manchester for about 7 years.
Oh,
So I'm
okay.
from Glasgow originally.
So what year did you move to Manchester?
2017.
So did I actually.
Did you?
Yeah.
Both northerners coming down.
Coming down. I don't think I could move any further down from Manchester though.
Do you like Manchester?
I love Manchester.
I love Manchester as well.
Like, I really, really love Manchester.
I've always said to Mabeen that if it ever gets, Mabeen, my husband, if things ever go sour, I'm staying in Manchester.
Oh, for sure.
So you'll have to see me.
For sure. I already am like, I want my parents to move down. And So, Race Across the World, I'll start with that. We're not going to talk too much about it because...
Go for it.
What made you apply?
Mabeen, my husband. He applied for season 2, which was the one from Central America to South America.
Yeah.
And I applied with him, but then I withdrew my application because I'm a major homebody. I was like, no, I can't do this.
Yeah.
I will not be able to travel for 2 months consecutively. Like, I get homesick after 3 days.
Yeah.
So I withdrew, and he applied with his friend, and he didn't get on.
Oh.
And then COVID happened, and I think after COVID, everyone was kind of feeling sort of claustrophobic, not being able to travel, because we usually do go on holiday like once a year. And I just thought, do you know what? Screw it, let's apply for Race Across the World. Not taking it seriously.
I mean, going on holiday once a year to travelling for... Is it actually 2 months that you travel for?
It was 2 months out of a backpack.
Wow.
No luxuries. And I'm a girl that likes her home, likes her bed, likes her warm showers every day.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm watching the new series just now, and I get anxiety in my stomach. Like, how did I do this for 2 months?
Oh my goodness. But you made it look so easy. Obviously, they edit it and things, but you and Mabeen were like literally our favourites, to the point where me and my husband would sometimes rewind and watch some of your stuff again, because it was like, oh, they are absolutely amazing.
Yeah. I mean, we went into it not with a let's win this mindset. We went into it in this is a once in a lifetime mindset. So let's just enjoy and take the most memories from it rather than the most money. Like, we weren't really bothered.
But that really came through, because you guys experienced so much in terms of life with the people that were living there as well.
Yeah, and that's how you experience it.
Yeah.
Infiltrating into the local families and culture, really.
Yeah, no, it was and do you know what? I was saying this to Emma last year. I felt like you were the true representation of what British Muslims look like in the UK. Because there is like a bit of a taboo and a bit of like I suppose, stereotype of what we look like. But I feel like seeing you guys on screen, I was like, yes, that's what we're
normal people.
Just normal people living a normal life.
That's interesting, because I don't know if you remember the episode where we ended up in a sort of Bible camp.
Yes, I remember.
And Mabeen was really uncomfortable with bringing up the fact that we were Muslim because of that taboo and stigma about what Muslims are, like these barbaric terrorists.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I think we should bring it up, because if they don't meet normal people, they're never going to know. And it turned out really good, because they hadn't actually met Muslims before, ever, that family.
Wow.
So it was like, hi, we're Muslim, and we just like the usual things that you like to do as well.
And actually, your values are probably quite similar to ours in terms of love and respect.
Exactly.
And, we're probably a lot more similar than people realise.
I remember at one point, one of the family members asked, what's your key to heaven?
Oh, wow.
And I was just like, just be a nice person. Like, I don't think there's a key.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my stance on religion anyway. It's like,
same.
I don't necessarily believe just because you're a Christian or a Muslim or a Jew or Hindu or Sikh, that, you know, you're following the right path. It's just, a good person.
For me, it's just about spirituality and that connection,
Basically,
being a good person, humanity. But seeing you and Mubin, honestly, it was incredible. There's so many moments that I found so emotional. And even now, I have only told one friend that I had approached you and I was going to chat to you, and the first thing she said was, "Oh my God, their episode with the man in the van,
Yeah.
that was something." Because we were like, I literally sobbed at that moment. It was really, and even now when I think about it, it was quite. You know, sometimes you watch TV and something just stays with you.
Yeah.
That moment it was like, wow.
So that moment, I mean, obviously they had to edit it down to capture a very small amount of it, but it was probably the most memorable car ride for me. I actually couldn't even speak because I was crying so much. I was just like looking out the window. I was like, you do not want to see my ugly crying face. And Mubin never cries. And he was crying, and it was just, this man was so lovely. And our camera lady, she was crying. She was like with the camera. So it was a very emotional scene. And I think a lot of people do feel like, well, was it set up? Was he put there? And was not at all. Like, we just happened to run into him and have that conversation. And it was just, you know, sometimes when things happen and you think there is definitely some higher power out there orchestrating this, because what were the chances that was our last journey finishing? So yeah, it was very emotional.
I felt it. And even now, like I said, when me and my friend spoke about it, we both teared up, because I think that what I really like about Race Across the World is it's very wholesome. I feel like you really get to see people at their most vulnerable, when they're exhausted, when they're traveling, when they don't have much money. Like, I feel like you can see that. And that particular moment in time, we had seen your journey, and we had obviously started to really, really like you as people. And we felt for you, like there was that kind of real empathy and love. So yeah, I thought that really came across.
I was really surprised at how invested people got in that.
Hello, a year later.
Like it resonated so much, the whole infertility story. And I've always been very open about it, because, like, you know, I've come from a childhood where a lot of stuff was suppressed, and as I got older, I was like, do you know what? I'm going to talk about all the things that you're not supposed to talk about, and let's talk about infertility as well.
Yeah.
And just that there's so many women and couples and families out there that are really struggling with it and don't feel like they can speak about it. It's,
you know, one of my cousins, and I literally cried my eyes out at this. So when I started doing the podcast, as you know, this is something very personal to me. It's a journey. I think there's something about being in your mid-30s. You want to do things, explore parts of you. Anyways, he messaged me saying me and Anissa, so his wife, were listening to your podcast, and we want to come over to Manchester to live in Birmingham and talk about our journey into fertility. And I was like, oh my God, like, what a privilege and an honor that you feel like you want to come and talk about it and want to spread into the world as well, because it is a taboo subject, and I think it's a subject that needs to be talked about.
Yeah, it's opening yourself up to being very vulnerable, because I think what was difficult for me in the beginning is I don't really want people's pity.
Yeah.
Like, it is a hard subject to talk about, but I don't want anyone to think that I'm living my life in a substandard way just because I don't have children.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important to not put all your value as a woman into your ability to reproduce a child. So that's something that I'm super passionate about.
Yeah.
And I've actually got a niece. I'm gonna try and talk about the story without getting emotional, because it always makes me emotional. My niece has got like a medical condition, so she probably won't ever be able to have kids. And she was only like 15 or 16 at the time. She's now about 22. And she said, Popo, maybe you can't have children so that it's easier for me when I can't have children. And honestly, I didn't show how I was really like affected by it at the time, but I was just like, if that's the only reason, like if I can show women that it's okay,
Yeah.
and you can still have a good life, then that'll be more than enough for me. Sorry, I'm like blubbering like 5 minutes into it.
No, I'm just gonna
get me a toilet roll.
Get you some tissue.
Thank
I've
you.
got some fancy Pakistani style tissue for you.
That's very fancy. I like that.
You can.
Yeah.
I think, gosh, that's really, really deep, isn't it? The fact that I think that's the thing about suffering in general. In whatever way or capacity you suffer, you know, there's always someone out there who's also suffering, and sometimes it's that common experience, lived experience, and sometimes it makes you question your purpose in life.
I think we all get very bogged down in our individual wants and needs and what that means for us and how we will move forward in our life as an individual, but we always forget about the impact that we could be having on people around about us and how important that could be for them. So something might be really crap for you, but you have no idea what benefit that's doing for somebody else. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
I'm not saying that sit there and suffer and just because you're helping other people, but you have to see the bigger picture. There's way more to it than just you as an individual.
And everyone's journey is so unique as well. You know, even in terms of your journey of infertility, it'll be different to another person's. Like, it's so individual, but that doesn't make it any harder or any easier.
Yeah. I mean, I stopped counting the years. In the beginning, it was like, it's been 1 year since we've been trying. It's been 2 years. It's been, as long as I don't make it to 5 years, I'll be fine. As long as I have a child. But now I've stopped counting, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's like, when it's going to happen, it will happen. And if it doesn't happen, even then, life is so good. Like, I've got so many things that I can do in my life.
And I think having a partner who's understanding and 100%. Who's on the same page, I think is what would make it or break it as well, though. Because I think you need to have a partner who's on the same page. So obviously it's completely different. So my mum, I'm an only child, which, as you can imagine, for an Asian family is unheard of, really. An only child who's a girl as well. So I grew up my whole life, my mum being asked, we're not having any more children. Or I should try for a boy. Or to say to my dad, why don't you get married again and see if you can have a boy? Me. So I was kind of privy into a very tiny snippet of what it would be like for a woman to not have children in an Asian. And I don't even think this is an Asian issue, by the way. I think it's a universal thing where people think that they have the right to ask questions about your personal life.
I think it's probably, in terms of the Asian society and expectations, there probably is a bit more of an emphasis. You get married and then you will have kids. I think sort of more British ideology, there is that expectation that you will have a kid, but not as much. Like, if you choose not to, it's a bit more accepted. But that's not to take away from the struggles of people that want to have families, regardless of their backgrounds and ethnicities. But I have been very fortunate in that I have felt the pressure initially, but I'm a bit ballsy, so I kind of put people in their place. And after doing that a couple of times, people backed off.
See, the kind of person my mum is, when I first got married, no one really asked initially, because I think we were like 3 years, and obviously 3 years for Asians is like, wow, 3 years into marriage and you're still not, you know. But it's infuriating that they think that it's okay to ask those questions without knowing your story or your struggles.
I think people are just thick, aren't they?
Yeah, they're really, really thick.
Don't think about it. Because something's easy for them, they don't assume that, something else is going on.
In terms of kind of your journey here and now, then,
Yeah.
kind of where are you at? As in, what would you say to anyone who is experiencing infertility? What would be your advice? What would you say here and now?
That's such a difficult question to answer because some days I'm absolutely fine, but then other days I feel rotten and I couldn't give anyone any advice on how to cope with it other than just feel what you're feeling.
Yeah.
I vent a lot to Mubin. You know, I'm so grateful that he's the lovely, placid, chilled out guy that he is. And he's always supported me in the sense that he's, you know, he emphasizes all the time that he married me for me and not for the fact that we could have children. Like, our family unit is complete the way we are.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, he's a pain in the ass as well, but
Yeah.
I have to give it to him. He's helped me a lot.
Aren't we all a pain in the arse?
So yeah, I mean, he won't let me get any more cats. So that's an argument
I
forevermore.
think three's a lot.
No, it's not. 5. 5 is the magic number.
Oh.
He's refusing. He said 3's the max.
I'm sure you can push him a little bit more.
But the way I sort of cope with it is not try and catastrophize and think too far ahead. I think people worry a lot about what the future is going to look like, and I really do take each day as it comes. Like, I don't think about what's going to be happening next year or the year after or the year after. What am I doing today and what can I do? You know, that will make things easier in whatever way. So trying not to think so far ahead that it overwhelms you.
Yeah, yeah. You know how you've just completed your junior doctor training and now you are a consultant?
I am a consultant psychiatrist.
Psychiatrist. Yeah. Where did that passion stem from? Was that, was your journey with infertility did that influence?
No, so infertility happened a lot later on. I was already in psychiatry training at that point. I was brought up in a very strict household. I didn't really have an opinion. It was, would I say overtly or covertly? I'd say it was overtly quite misogynistic. And I grew up with 3 older brothers, and the disparity between how they were treated versus me and the freedom and the liberations that they had was very obvious to me as well. But as a child, I didn't really have much of a say in what was going on. In a sort of way to try and gain control, I ended up developing an eating disorder and then very severe anxiety and panic attacks. First started when I was about 13 years old.
Oh,
and I didn't know at the time. At the time, I just thought, this is me, I'm just a bit of a weirdo. But in hindsight and after, recovering, I understand that was my childhood mechanism. That was that child trying to cope with all the lack of control, basically. I was forced into medical school. Essentially, it was expected that I would go to medical school.
Oh, wow.
Because we were all sort of high achievers and we didn't want to upset our parents. So I didn't even think that I had any other option other than to go to medical school. And then within medical school, they rotate you around different specialties. So like GP, surgery, internal medicine, pediatrics, radiology. And then I went into, and nothing really was sort of resonating with me. And then I did the mental health one placement. And I was just like, I think I found my calling.
Oh, wow.
Just being able to relate what other people were struggling with back to what I had experienced in the past. And psychiatry is just, you see individuals at their most vulnerable.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was more of I found it fascinating. I found it really interesting. And I felt like I wanted to help these people.
Yeah.
And in a sense, probably wanting to help myself as well.
Yeah.
Like unpack everything that I had been through.
Because at that point, had you not received any support for how...
I mean, I didn't... the general support was go to the GP, they stick you on antidepressants.
Yeah, basically.
Kind of that was it. I had like 6 sessions of CBT, not underplaying CBT or how GPs manage it, but I think there's a bit more to it than that.
Yeah.
So it's only very later on, actually, in 2019, that I went into therapy. And I'm still in therapy. psychiatrists that is in therapy.
But I do feel like, mental health is something that I've not experienced until becoming a mum.
Yep.
And, postnatal depression, antenatal depression was very, very real. And I was very much kind of not admitting to myself that this was really quite horrendous, and the intrusive thoughts, the dark thoughts. And then I didn't go for therapy or anything. Then COVID really helped to heal and unpick a lot of that. And then it was when Ria was born that I could feel kind of those intrusive thoughts and everything. I went to the GP, and again, they offered to put me on antidepressants, and I was like, actually no, because I've got some really good coping mechanisms. I just need to talk to someone. And they referred me to talking therapies, and that was probably the most horrific experience because it was over the phone. It was half an hour with a student, and it was very textbook led, so they wanted to put me on scale as to how I'm feeling, and I was like, well, this has completely made me anxious, and it didn't help. So then I paid privately to go for therapy. But I really wish it was almost like a dentist, like that therapists were readily available, just generally for everyone, because there's so many of us experiencing anxiety or depression or things where there needs to be, I think we need to understand ourselves.
As a new mum, you can enlighten me on this, but you know how you have your sort of postnatal package of care or whatever it is there a psychologist involved in that?
No.
Okay, because that is a very vulnerable time for a woman. And I think, as a new mom, you're kind of expected to be over the moon and happy and get on with it.
Absolute bullshit.
If you think about the physical trauma that woman has gone through, and just the magnitude of the change that she's experiencing, she will need support.
And and it wasn't readily available, so I just think there needs to be a little bit more. And I think that's exactly why, same as what you were saying earlier, that I want to be able to talk and be open about my feelings and experiences, because there's so many women out there that, and men, of course, there's men out there as well, but women who I've spoken to who we've had similar lived experiences, yet we've never spoken to anyone about it because we're too afraid to be judged or, be unappreciative, or maybe we're not expressing our gratitude. But I think you can still be grateful and feel low at the same time.
You can still be grateful and say, well, this wasn't right, was it? They're not contradictory in any sense.
No.
It kind of relates it back to the fact that I'd really love to be able to have a child, but I'm not gonna. That doesn't negate the fact that I've got a really good life. Otherwise. But as a consultant psychiatrist, I'm actually working with female inpatients.
Oh, right, okay.
So I'm all about female empowerment. I think that kind of my childhood shaped that in me to really advocate for women. And show how strong women can be. Whatever their situation is.
I think that really comes across though. Like, obviously I got a bit obsessed with you guys on Race Across the World. I started following you and like watching your stories, and there is something really empowering about, you could be who you want to be, and yes, you've got struggles and battles, but that's not all of you. Of you, that's a part of your story, but you can still make the most out of life and what it's got to offer as well. So do you have a job lined up?
Yeah, I do actually, in Manchester. So that's going to start in about a month's time. Just over a month actually. So female inpatient unit. It's going to be challenging, but do you know what, I'm looking forward to it. I see my patients as part of my team, to be honest. It's not a team versus the patient situation, which I think a lot of the time.
In terms of the female, what kind of job role do you do in terms of day to day? Is that one-to-one sessions? Do you assess them? Do you?
Yeah. So most of the time when patients are admitted into hospital, it's because they're very unwell. And that can be for whatever reason. It could be because they're depressed. It could be because they're manic. They're suffering from bipolar disorder. They're suffering from schizophrenia. So it can be a whole range of mental health issues. And what my role as a consultant psychiatrist is to see them regularly and come up with management plans collaboratively with the patient in order to get them to a point where they no longer need to be in hospital. Hospital is really just a temporary place for them to be as safe as possible before we discharge them back. And people can be there informally, which means that they're there because they want to be there, or they can be sectioned, which is under the Mental Health Act, which means that they don't necessarily want to be there, but we're keeping them there.
Because they're a danger to themselves or others.
Yep.
In terms of like the support, as in any therapy, who would it be that would provide them with that one-to-one, whether that's CBT or kind of counselling sessions? Or
this is something that I have a bit of an issue with in terms of what the NHS is able to provide, because shockingly there's actually not a psychologist present in the inpatient unit. So patients don't have access to a psychologist to have therapy with one-to-one, which, you know, as an outsider, if you're not used to it, I mean, I'm sort of, the shock of that has worn off and like it's expected now, but there's such a lack of psychologists and lack of funding within the NHS that we just simply cannot provide them with that. So I have actually been thinking about how I'm going to navigate this issue, because there's only so much I can do in terms of one-to-ones. But I'll have a team, and that's still something I'm trying to figure out, because I want it to be therapeutic for my patients. I don't want it to be a case of they come in hospital, we give them medication, we discharge them.
Because when they're out in the community, it's kind of what support have they got to continue. They've got is a community
mental health
teams.
Yeah. There's community mental health teams, and quite often there is a psychologist within that community mental health team. So that's something that is there. But as you'll know, the services are so overwhelmed that it's really difficult to be able to provide consistent quality care to everyone that needs it. That's an issue that no one's really going to be able to solve. You or I are going to be able to solve, but we can do our little bit.
Yeah. Like talk about it, tell people to get help and support ASAP rather than leaving it. In terms of kind of your job and the capacity that you're working in, is that similar to what Mubin does as well?
Mubin's an orthopaedic trainee.
Okay, so I didn't know that.
He's basically a joiner and plumber for the body.
For the bones.
Yeah. So he's still a junior doctor. He's got another 4 years to go. But yeah, he operates. How
do you guys juggle like because it must be a really, really high, intense kind of jobs for both of you. Like mentally, I would imagine, like going through all the studying and being in junior doctor training.
I think it helps because we are able to sort of empathise and understand, for example, if Mubin needs to study for the weekend, or we can't have plans for a month or so because he's really busy with work, or vice versa, I'm really busy. There's not that irritability or frustration, like, oh, why doesn't he make time for me? Like, I get it.
Yeah.
It's very taxing. So I think having that sort of element there is really helpful. I know couples where maybe only one of the individuals is a doctor and the other one's kind of getting really pissed off because they can't spend any time.
Because I think I would be the other person. I'd be like, excuse me, hello.
And it also helps that we both very much like our own company as well.
Yeah.
So although we are a couple, we've not merged our identities into one. Like, it's not Zainib and Mubin.
You're like chalk and cheese. Like, obviously, seeing you from an outsider's kind of point of view, I felt like, your personalities, I think you would just...
Yeah. Like, we've got our own friend circle. We have our own interests and hobbies. And that kind of makes it more interesting when we're together, because we've got stuff to talk about together. And we're not always in each other's faces. So when we do spend time together, it's a lot nicer.
Wholesome.
Yeah.
Are you watching the new Race Across the World series?
I am watching it, yeah.
What are your thoughts and feelings?
I'm a bit biased because I've met Stephen and Viv in person, and I thought they were hilarious, and so I'm kind of a bit biased towards them.
Yeah.
Mabine really liked, was it Isabel and Bridie who got...
So I've only watched 2 episodes.
Okay, I'm not going to say
No,
anything
no, no,
else.
no, but they were, but in both episodes they were that. But I really, really liked them. I loved kind of her journey into dyslexia, and I loved that she works with children with additional needs. I feel like I had a soft spot for them too, and I also had a soft spot for Steve and his wife, because Steve worked as a social worker for a bit, I think.
Steve did everything for a bit.
Yeah. So I feel like for that reason, I feel like I could resonate with them too.
Yeah.
So they were probably my top 2 so far. I haven't watched all of it. So
my initial impression was it's a very young cast.
Yes, it is. There was no one in their 30s, I don't think.
Yeah, millennials not being represented.
Yeah, I was like, excuse me, hello.
I saw a comment on Twitter the other day. It was like, I feel like we're missing the sort of mid-30s, 30-something-year-olds that go between feeling really low to really happy.
Yeah, basically us. Although my husband, I said to him, we should do Race Across the World. And he was like, after 3 days in Poland with you and a backpack, there's no way in hell am I doing 2 months of you mourning and complaining.
Have you ever been backpacking?
No. 3 days in Poland wasn't equivalent to backpacking because the hotels were quite decent. But I did have a backpack with 3 days worth of supplies.
Well, yeah, I mean...
So I'd imagine that's like an extension of that on like long term.
You probably could do it. Like, if I can do it, I think anyone can do it.
It's a sleeping situation. I'm just such a bitch without sleep. And I do not function without sleep. So I feel like if I've not had a good night's kip, I'm just going to be horrendous. And imagine that on screen for hundreds of thousands of people.
Which was me. Shouting at me, what are you doing?
Yeah, but I could see a little bit of myself in that though, because I was like, that would be poor Emmett listening to me going on about how, oh my goodness, like just catastrophizing like the most silliest of things.
Yeah, I mean, like Mabine had his fair share of tantrums as well.
He did.
But I feel like it was angled more towards getting my meltdowns on screen a bit more, which is fine. Yeah. Absolutely fine. But yeah. No,
did you enjoy your experience of Race Across the World? Like, are you glad on reflection? Are you glad that you did it?
I'm glad I did it, yeah. I think it helped me grow in a way that it helped me understand what I want from my life, and that is exactly what it is. Like, I was so glad to come back to my life. I didn't have an epiphany to say, right, I need to change this, I need to change this. I literally went to work the next day because I was like, I want to go back to work.
Yeah.
Because there was that fear, like, what if you go away and you realise you really hate your life back home?
Really? That hasn't even occurred to me, like, that you would maybe think.
So I think a lot of, like, for example, Kathy, from Kathy and Trish.
Yeah, they were such a lovely duo.
Yeah, we bonded immediately with them. But, like, she had the realisation that she didn't enjoy doing what she did for work so much.
Wow.
And I think I'd be almost devastated if that happened to me.
Yeah. Me too, because I love what I do and I can't imagine if I'm not doing that, what else am I going to be doing?
You'd feel a bit lost, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Like, what do I do if that's not making me happy? But the realisation for me was that I really like being a hermit.
Yeah.
And I really like not travelling. That's a taboo in itself. Like, usually it's like, go travelling, go see the world. I mean, yeah, but I also like to stay at home.
Yeah, me too. Like, as much as I come across as an extrovert, I can't think of anything better than being in my duvet with a book and a cup of tea with some biscuits.
It's basically me every day.
Like, that to me is pure bliss.
Yeah.
Or watching a little bit of trashy TV as well. Like, I do love that to switch off completely.
But you've got young kids, don't you? So do you manage to find pockets to be able to switch off? Yeah.
So I'm very intentional about self-care days. It's like today I've intentionally booked time off to do something that I enjoy.
Yeah.
Twice a week I will have something in my social calendar where I'll go and see some friends or do something just
Yeah.
to recharge and refill my cup.
Yeah.
So I'm quite
That's
intentional with my self-care
so
stuff.
important to do that.
So I want my kids to see that as well. I want my kids to be like, you don't just live your life being a really stressed out, exhausted mum. You do things for yourself. I would like them to, have their own hobbies and things, and like for us all as individuals, have autonomy in what we do and say, and yeah.
And are you seeing that in them? Like they kind of go off and do their own
Oh
activities?
yes. So interestingly enough, Niall, he's a bit of an introvert in that he likes his own company, and like we were at the wedding a couple of weeks ago, and I noticed I couldn't find him anywhere. He had just gone inside, sat on the sofa because he needed some time out.
Yeah.
And I was so proud of him because I was like, at 5, you already know that you're a bit overwhelmed.
I didn't learn that until I was 30.
I know, right? Like that's the thing.
Just carry on until you have a nervous breakdown.
Yeah, because that's what you've been told.
Yeah.
Same. And actually, when I had Niall, it was an expectation that I went back home and I had just given birth and we had visitors after visitors.
I don't understand that concept.
Zainib, from 9 a.m. till midnight one day.
What is that about?
I had piles, I had stitches, and I was sat there with a child who wanted my boobs. And I had the visitors as well on top of that.
I think I'd only want my immediate family in that moment in time to relieve me so that I could sleep.
Yep.
Like, I don't want to see some aunties, uncles.
Who you'll never see again.
It's like, what?
Yeah. So, I didn't understand the concept.
Did you put up with it?
Until the last few years, I would say. So it's been a journey and a half. So I'm very much instilled that in my children. Like, if you need time, you go find it. Yeah. If you are interested in something, like Niall really wanted to do gymnastics. So I was like, okay, cool, we'll go sign you up. And now he goes to gymnastics. So yeah, it's really important. And I think we know that from our experiences, don't we? Coming from, families where
everyone else's needs are they come first.
And we're natural people pleasers.
And as women as well, I think women generally as a whole, they're taught to put their needs aside to cater to the needs of everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not like I'm still learning that it's not rude to say no or to say, actually, that's not how I want to do it.
Yeah.
And if people want to be offended by that, then I guess that's more of a them issue.
Yeah, Emma always says it's a you problem, not a me problem.
It's always a you problem.
And I love that. I'm like, yeah, actually it is a you problem and not a me problem on this occasion, because I think you have to have really good boundaries in place.
Yeah. Do you listen to Gabor Maté at all?
No, I don't. Oh, I listened to him on Stephen Bartlett's podcast and I fell in love with him. And
he's like my celebrity crush.
He is just I could have listened to him all day.
He's 80 years old, but I will literally have an affair with him. Gabor, if you're listening.
Hello! Zainab's available.
I've never, that's an example of how attracted you can be to someone's soul.
Like, absolutely.
There's no physically, obviously he's an 80-year-old man.
Yeah.
But he's just such a nice soul.
The way he talks about trauma as well, like, I just absolutely love the way he links kind of your experiences with how you are. And
I think he's coming to London in September.
Is he?
Yeah, he's got some sort of, I've seen adverts for it, a psychiatry conference where he's going to be talking about trauma. Tickets are like £600.
Oh,
but
that's me out of the equation then. I thought you were going to say 16. I was like, yeah, I can do 16.
I will sell a kidney to go see Gabor Maté.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, you'll have to tell me how it is.
Yeah, I've not booked my tickets yet because I'm unemployed right now. So once I'm in regular employment,
when you have 600 quid for to see Gab. Yeah, he is incredible. I do love listening. I need to buy one of his books actually. Which one is it that you would recommend? Because he's got a few, hasn't he?
I've read 3 of his books. The Myth of Normal, probably. It's a hefty book. It's like 600 pages, but there are so many important lessons in there, and there's like a chapter dedicated specifically to women and how women have this huge expectation to perform a certain way and how that impacts their life later on.
Wow.
Like to the point where even looking after your husband, you know, it's kind of an expectation
It
that he will
is.
cook and clean and
Yeah.
like that shaves like years off a woman's life expectancy.
And do you know what? Me and Emma often say this, like, as much as I would say as a couple, we're very much 50-50. Naturally, the way society is shaped,
Yeah.
the woman ends up doing so much more.
Yeah.
And then we still have to go through periods and hormones and menopause on top of everything else as well. Like, physically, we go through so much as well that no one takes that into consideration.
Yeah. It's just, I think it's just naturally ingrained in us as women as well. And we are very nurturing by nature as well. So we do want to look after everyone, and you know, but sometimes that can go overboard. But I joke with Mobeen saying that like being married to you is shaving life. Shaving life from me. I'm dying because of you. He's like, shut up, I don't look after you so well.
Yeah. It's true though, you know. It is true. Like, I feel like as women we have unrealistic expectations of ourselves as well, I think sometimes, where we try and just keep on going, which is why I think definitely more recently I just think we need to take a step back and have me time.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever that means.
Yeah, 100%.
Like me doing this and you being wild enough to be like, yeah, I'll do it. To be honest, you know, when I asked you, I did not expect you to say yes at all.
What?
So when you said yes, I was like, oh shit. What do I do?
It's like
now?
asking someone out on a date and they say yeah, and you're like, damn it, I've got to go on the date.
Like when you're punching a little bit, do you know what I mean? I was like, oh damn, what do I do now? Like, how do I proceed from here?
I've made friends on Instagram. After a race across the world.
Oh, Zainib, like majority of my pals in Manchester are all from the gram.
Yeah.
Because how else are you meant to meet people? I'm not going to meet people. Like, what if you don't click with people in your line of work, or you know, what if you don't click with the mums on the school run?
Yeah, mum friends.
Gosh. Like, how else do you find friends? So yeah, I connected with people on the gram, and they're some of my closest friends.
Yeah. I was going to say something, I totally forgot.
Oh, sorry, it's just me.
No, I totally forgot what I was going to say. Oh no, I was going to say, like, connecting with people and stuff. Like, all my friends, all my close friends, they kind of know that I'm a really crap friend. In the sense that I go quiet for long periods of time, just because that's my way of self-care. Like, I'm not an overly social person. And if I maximum socialise once every 2 weeks, and even that will take it out of me.
Yeah.
Like, all my friends recognise that about me, and I love them so much more for like realising, oh, it's 8 o'clock, you know, it's time for Zainab to get ready for bed, let's leave now. Like, you know what, it's just like, I appreciate you so much more.
Yeah. I didn't even know that was a thing until COVID, you know, Zainab.
What was going to bed at 8 p.m?
No. Like the fact that you have social battery, and the fact that my social battery is very, very low. I didn't know that was a thing. Like, COVID was, this is going to sound awful, but COVID was when I felt the greatest in myself, because I wasn't having to commit or go out or socialise or do things. I was very much, honestly, I've never felt.
COVID was interesting time, wasn't it? Like, that's when I got into running because the gyms were closed. The weather was gorgeous.
It was beautiful.
Like,
it was stunning.
And it was like April, May time, and it was
glorious.
Can you imagine if it was like right now, like grey and dull, and we were all stuck inside? I think we'd all be a little bit more depressed. But the fact that the weather was just so lovely as well, and everyone just needed a rest, didn't they? Everyone needed a good rest.
Yeah. But I realised then that actually my social battery is limited, and I can't say yes to everything. And maximum that I can cope with going out is 1, maybe 2 times a week.
Yeah. But even extroverts have a limit on how much energy they can expend. So I think some people think that extroverts can just keep going and going and going. But actually your body physically needs a rest as well. Yeah. So you might feel like mentally you can keep going, but you're going to make yourself ill.
Yeah, that's probably me. All right, before I take the podcast off, when I went to Poland, obviously I knew that afterwards I was going to see you, and in my little backpack I was like, oh, I really want to get you something cat related because you're obsessed with cats. So then I went from little markets to little markets searching for
You're
a
so
cat-related
sweet.
item, and I found this.
Oh, that's so cute.
It's a fridge magnet.
That's so cute.
And that's in Polish. It says "Lucky Cat."
Oh, thank you.
So
You didn't have to get me anything.
no, it was just to say thank you and to say thank you for joining in with my crazy venture,
Oh, it's
and
been an
hope you
absolute
like
pleasure.
it.
Will do. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for having me.
No, thank you. Bye.
Bye.